In the harsh morning light of a Texas border town, two black SUVs barrel down a dusty road, kicking up clouds that obscure the rising sun. Inside one vehicle, a young woman's muffled screams go unheard. The men in cartel tattoos laugh, unaware of the tracking device in her bracelet, or that her pet dog is actually a retired military canine with over 200 successful missions. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Emma Martinez stands at the edge of her father's sprawling ranch, her boots planted firmly in the rust-colored earth of southern Texas. At 24, she's already earned a reputation as one of the sharpest ranch managers in Mason County. The early morning sun casts long shadows across the Double M ranch as she watches Rex, her Belgian Malinois, patrol the perimeter with military precision. Most people see Rex as just another ranch dog, but Emma knows better. 3 years ago, when her father Miguel brought home the retired military K9, she recognized something different in the dog's eyes. The same intensity she'd seen in her brother's gaze when he returned from Afghanistan. Rex had served 6 years in special operations, with a record that remained mostly classified. Now he serves as her constant companion, though few know his true background. The ranch hands tip their hats as Emma makes her morning rounds, Rex trotting faithfully at her side. Jorge, their longest-serving worker, approaches with concern etched on his weathered face. "Señorita Emma, you should see this." He leads her to the north fence line, where fresh tire tracks cut through their property. The tracks are deep, heavy vehicles, probably SUVs. Emma crouches to examine the tracks, while Rex's ears prick forward, his posture shifting subtly. After 6 generations of ranching this land, the Martinez family has learned to read the signs. These aren't the usual traces left by local traffic or border patrol. Back at the main house, Miguel Martinez reviews security footage on his laptop, his face grim. At 58, he's weathered everything from drought to market crashes. But lately, something darker has been casting shadows over their corner of Texas. 3 neighboring ranches have reported break-ins over the past month. The cartel's influence is creeping north like a poison vine. They're getting bolder, Miguel says, pausing the footage on a frame showing 2 black SUVs passing their front gate at 3 a.m. First the Henderson place, then the Garza Ranch. They're working their way down the line. He doesn't mention what everyone knows, that both families paid hefty protection fees to be left alone. Emma's mother, Diana, sets down a cup of coffee with trembling hands. She's been having nightmares again, the same ones that started after their neighbors, the Garzas, found cartel warnings nailed to their fence posts. "Maybe we should consider their offer," Diana suggests quietly. "No." Miguel's voice is steel. "My father didn't fight to keep this land just to give it up to thugs." He turns to Emma. "But I want you carrying at all times now. No more solo rides to the south pastures." Emma absently touches the bracelet on her wrist, a gift from her brother before his last deployment. Inside its simple silver band lies a military-grade tracking device, one of many precautions her family has taken lately. "I'm never alone," she says, scratching Rex behind the ears. The dog's muscles tense slightly under her touch, already attuned to the rising tension in the room. Later that afternoon, Emma drives out to check on a broken irrigation pump, Rex in the passenger seat of her pickup. The radio crackles with news of increasing cartel activity in neighboring counties. She's about to turn it off when a familiar name catches her attention. The Hendersons have sold their ranch and are moving north. Another family driven out. At the pump station, Emma notices fresh cigarette butts scattered around the equipment. Rex's low growl confirms her suspicions. Someone's been watching the property. As she kneels to examine the pump, movement reflects in the chrome housing. 2 men emerge from the brush behind her. "Señorita Martinez," one calls out in accented English. "Your father's a proud man, too proud to listen to reason." He steps forward, revealing a silver skull ring, a calling card of the Los Muertos cartel. Pride can be dangerous in these times. Rex moves like liquid lightning, positioning himself between Emma and the men, his training evident in every coiled muscle. The men pause, eyeing the dog with a mixture of amusement and mild concern. They don't see a military-grade weapon, just another ranch dog. "Tell your father he has 3 days to reconsider our generous offer," the man continues, keeping his distance. "After that, well..." He shrugs, letting the threat hang in the air. Things happen to stubborn people. Emma stands slowly, one hand resting on Rex's back, feeling the tremor of his contained aggression. "I'll tell him," she says, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Now get off our land." The men retreat to their vehicle, laughing. As they drive away, Emma quickly photographs their license plate and sends it to her brother's old military contact. Rex maintains his guard position until the dust cloud disappears on the horizon. That evening, the Martinez family gathers for dinner, a tradition they've maintained through every crisis. The windows are open to catch the cool evening breeze, carrying the scent of Diana's enchiladas and the distant lowing of cattle. But tonight, the usual warmth is tempered by an undercurrent of tension. Miguel studies satellite images of their property on his tablet, marking potential vulnerability. Points. Diana pretends not to notice the new shotgun mounted by the back door, and Emma catches Rex staring intently into the gathering darkness beyond the window, his ears twitching at sounds too distant for human perception. None of them realize that less than a mile away, in an abandoned hunting cabin, members of Los Muertos are planning a lesson in compliance, one that will shatter their world by tomorrow's dawn. They've chosen their target carefully, the rancher's beloved daughter. In their experience, even the proudest men become surprisingly flexible when their children are at risk. What the cartel doesn't know is that they're not just targeting a rancher's daughter. They're about to confront a woman who grew up learning tactical awareness alongside horse riding, whose pet dog is a veteran of battles they couldn't imagine, and whose military brother made sure she had resources most civilians never see. As night falls over the Double M Ranch, Emma makes one last round of the property with Rex. The setting sun paints the sky in shades of blood and gold, and somewhere in the distance, coyotes begin their nightly chorus. Tomorrow will bring violence to this peaceful corner of Texas, but for now, the land holds its breath, waiting for dawn. Dawn breaks over Mason County like a cracked egg, spilling amber light across the desert scrubland. Emma's up early, her usual routine now weighted with precaution. Rex follows her to the barn, where Jorge and 2 other hands are already preparing for the day's work. The morning carries an unusual stillness. No birdsong, no distant traffic. "Something's wrong," Jorge mutters, his eyes scanning the horizon. 20 years of ranch work has honed his instincts. Rex's ears perk up, his head turning sharply toward the south pasture. Emma feels it too, that invisible pressure that comes before a storm. Her phone buzzes. It's a message from her brothers. "Contact. The license plate she photographed belongs to a vehicle reported stolen in Laredo last week. Known cartel connections." Emma's about to call her father when Jorge shouts a warning. 3 vehicles appear on the access road. 2 black SUVs and a pickup truck. They're moving fast, kicking up clouds of dust that turn golden in the morning light. Rex's growl deepens as Emma quickly sends her location through her bracelet's tracking system. "Get to the house," she orders Jorge and the others. "Warn my father." The ranch hands hesitate, but Emma's tone brooks no argument. They sprint toward the main house as she slides behind the wheel of her truck, Rex jumping in beside her. If the cartel wants to play chase, she'll lead them away from her family. The truck's engine roars to life as the first SUV crashes through their front gate. Emma floors it, cutting across the training paddock toward the maze of back roads she's known since childhood. The cartel vehicles split up, two following her, while the pickup heads toward the main house. Emma's truck bounces over familiar terrain, her mind racing through options. The nearest border patrol station is 20 minutes away, assuming she can maintain her lead. Rex stays low in the passenger seat, his training evident in his controlled alertness. A bullet shatters her rear window. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The chase weaves through dry creek beds and around rocky outcrops. Emma's local knowledge gives her an edge, but the SUVs are faster, more powerful. She heads for Miller's Canyon, where the road narrows between sheer rock walls. It's risky. One wrong move means a crash, but it's also her best chance to lose them. Her phone rings. It's her father. "Emma, where are you?" "There." The call cuts off as she enters the canyon, losing signal. The road ahead hairpins sharply between towering walls of red rock. Emma downshifts, takes the turn tight. Behind her, one SUV miscalculates, scraping against the canyon wall in a shower of sparks. But the second vehicle stays on her tail, professional drivers who know their business. They're herding her, she realizes too late, as a third vehicle appears ahead, blocking the narrow road. Emma slams the brakes, her truck sliding sideways in the loose gravel. Rex braces for impact. The collision is brutal but calculated. They don't want to kill her, they want to capture her. As her truck spins to a stop, Emma's head snaps forward then back. Through blurred vision, she sees men approaching with weapons drawn. Her hand finds Rex's collar, unclips it. "Casa," she whispers, their command for him to return home. The dog hesitates for a split second, torn between training and loyalty. "Go!" she hisses as rough hands reach through her shattered window. Rex lunges through the passenger window and disappears into the scrub brush just as someone yanks Emma's door open. She fights hard, breaking one man's nose and dislocating another's finger before a taser ends the struggle. Through the electric haze of pain, Emma hears them arguing in Spanish. They're angry about the dog escaping, but the leader dismisses their concerns. "It's just a ranch dog. Focus on the girl." They zip-tie her hands, check her for weapons, but overlook the tracking bracelet. It looks like simple jewelry, something a young woman might wear. At the ranch, Miguel Martinez and 3 ranch hands engage in a brief shootout with the pickup truck crew. They manage to drive them off, but the victory feels hollow when they realize it was just a diversion. Miguel tries calling Emma again, but gets no answer. Diana stands in the doorway, clutching Emma's last text message about the stolen vehicle. Jorge spots Rex first, running full speed toward the house alone. The dog's military training kicks in as he reaches Miguel, barking in a specific pattern that Emma taught him for emergencies. Miguel doesn't understand the code, but he understands what the empty collar in Rex's mouth means. Inside one of the SUVs, Emma regains full consciousness. They've blindfolded her, but she can feel they're heading south, probably toward the border. Her captors discuss their plans in Spanish, not realizing she understands every word. They'll hold her in Mexico until her father agrees to let their business operate through his ranch. If he refuses, well, pretty girls disappear all the time along the border. What they don't discuss, what they couldn't possibly know, is that Rex was more than just Emma's pet. For 6 years, he specialized in tracking high-value targets across Afghanistan's harshest terrain. His success rate was legendary among Special Forces handlers. And now, as the SUVs speed toward Mexico, Rex leads Miguel to Emma's abandoned truck, while her bracelet silently broadcasts her location to people who owe her brother several favors. The cartel's plan is simple: break the proud rancher by threatening his daughter. They've done it before, always successfully. but they've never dealt with a military-grade K9 who sees Emma as both pack and mission. They don't know that every K9 handler teaches their dog a final command for worst-case scenarios. Emma's whispered "Casa" wasn't just telling Rex to run home. It was activating years of tactical training. Back at the ranch, Miguel receives a call from a blocked number. The voice is professional, almost courteous. They want access to his land for their shipments, plus a reasonable monthly fee for protection. He has 24 hours to agree, or Emma joins the long list of border disappearances. Miguel's hand tightens on the phone as he watches Rex systematically searching Emma's truck, nose working with mechanical precision. The dog's bearing has changed. Gone is the friendly ranch companion, replaced by the military asset he used to be. Miguel thinks about the mysterious calls his son sometimes made about assets south of the border, about the tracking device hidden in Emma's bracelet. 24 hours, Miguel replies and hangs up. He turns to Jorge. Call everyone. I want all hands back at the ranch. As Jorge hurries to comply, Miguel opens a locked drawer in his desk and removes a satellite phone, the one his son told him to use only in extreme emergencies. The sun climbs higher over Mason County as trucks begin arriving at the Double M Ranch. Ranch hands, local veterans, neighbors who face their own cartel threats. And somewhere in the desert, a Belgian Malinois follows a scent only he can detect, moving with the same relentless purpose that made him a legend in another war half a world away. The afternoon heat ripples across the desert floor like invisible waves. Rex moves with mechanical precision through the scrubland, his black and tan coat blending with the shadows of scattered mesquite trees. 6 years of military training taught him to conserve energy, maintain focus, and most importantly, to track his target across any terrain. Behind him, Miguel Martinez and 2 local veterans follow on horseback, watching the dog work. Chad Wilson, who served 3 tours in Iraq, recognizes the K9's movement patterns. That's no regular ranch dog, he mutters, noting how Rex systematically quarters the ground, checking wind direction at regular intervals. Miguel's satellite phone buzzes, a text message with coordinates. His son's contacts have triangulated Emma's tracking bracelet to an area just north of the border. The cartel's heading for a private airstrip, likely planning to fly her deeper into Mexico. They have less than 5 hours before the sun sets. At the ranch, Diana coordinates with local ranchers who've brought their own men and resources. The community's response is overwhelming. Trucks, weapons, communications equipment. These families have watched the cartel's influence spread like a cancer, taking their neighbors' land piece by piece. Emma's kidnapping isn't just an attack on the Martinez family. It's the last straw. Jorge sets up a command center in the barn, using his military experience from his days in Mexican Special Forces. Maps cover folding tables as he plots known cartel routes and safe houses. The tracking bracelet shows Emma moving southwest at high speed, but they'll have to cross cartel territory to reach her. A black SUV arrives, kicking up dust. The driver, a sharp-featured woman in tactical gear, introduces herself only as Carter. She shows Miguel credentials that make his eyebrows rise. Your son called in some favors, she explains, unloading equipment from her vehicle. We have satellite coverage and drone support, but we need to move fast. Once they cross the border... Miles away, in the back of a cartel SUV, Emma focuses on memorizing their route despite her blindfold. Years of riding fence lines taught her to track distance and direction by feel. The men discuss their plans in Spanish, mentioning a plane waiting at Vicente's strip. Emma knows the place, an abandoned ranch where smugglers sometimes land. Small aircraft. One of her captors complains about the dog escaping. Should have shot it, he grumbles. The leader, who calls himself Dante, laughs. Focus on the job. By tonight, the old man will sign everything over. No one risks their children, no matter how stubborn they are. Emma flexes her wrists, feeling the tracking bracelet. They didn't recognize its military origin. Few would. Her brother had it specially made after a fellow soldier's daughter was kidnapped in South America. The thought of her brother brings a slight smile. The cartel chose the wrong family to threaten. Back in the desert, Rex suddenly changes direction, head high. The wind has shifted, bringing new information. The dog's pace quickens as he picks up a fresher scent. Chad watches with professional appreciation. In Afghanistan, we called dogs like him ghost hunters. They could track targets for days, through anything. Miguel's phone buzzes again. Carter's team has identified 3 possible locations where the cartel might be holding Emma before the flight. Rex is already heading for one of them, an abandoned gas station 10 miles south. The dog's military. Training and natural instincts are confirming what technology suggests. At the gas station, Dante receives a call that makes him curse. Their spotters have noticed unusual activity around the Martinez ranch. Too many vehicles, too much organization. Someone mentions seeing a woman in tactical gear. Change of plans, he orders. We move now. Call Vicente, tell him to fuel the plane. They rush Emma out to the vehicles. In their haste, one of the men accidentally knocks her against the doorframe. The impact shifts her blindfold just enough to glimpse the gas station's faded sign before. They shove her into the SUV. She also sees something else, a dust cloud on the horizon, moving fast. Rex leads the rescue party to the gas station minutes after the cartel leaves. The dog moves through the abandoned building with tactical precision, checking corners, following Emma's scent to where they held her. Chad and the other veterans recognize the methodical search pattern. This isn't a pet looking for its owner. This is a military asset executing its training. Carter's drone spots the cartel convoy heading for Vicente's airstrip. They're taking back roads, trying to avoid attention. But the kidnappers don't realize they've left a trail that goes beyond. Mere tracks in the dirt. Every canine handler knows that fear produces a distinct scent signature. Emma's terror, mixed with her familiar ranch soap and shampoo, might as well be a neon sign to Rex's enhanced senses. Miguel studies the aerial footage on Carter's laptop. The airstrip is deep in cartel territory. A straight approach would be suicide. But the desert offers other options, especially with local knowledge. He turns to Jorge, who's already marking alternate routes on the map. We'll need a diversion, Carter says, reviewing the satellite imagery. They have men posted on these ridges here and here. Once they spot us coming, she doesn't need to finish the thought. Everyone knows what cartel lookouts carry isn't. For show, Chad checks his rifle scope, adjusting for the desert conditions. In Iraq, we used to let the dogs lead us around enemy positions. They can smell an ambush from half a mile away. He looks at Rex, who stands alert, waiting for commands. Your daughter trained him well, sir. Miguel nods, remembering how Emma spent months working with Rex, building on his military training. Everyone thought she was just bonding with a pet. But now he sees the deeper purpose. His daughter and his son both understood something he didn't, that the cartel threat would eventually come to their door. Carter receives an encrypted message on her tablet. We have movement at the airstrip. Small plane just landed. Matches the cartel's usual transport type. She shows Miguel the thermal imaging. They're fueling it now. We have maybe an hour before they try to fly her out. The rescue party splits into 3 groups. Carter's team will approach from the north, using the ridgeline for cover. Chad and the veterans take the east, ready to provide sniper support. Miguel, Jorge, and Rex will come in from the west, using an old cattle trail that doesn't appear on any recent maps. As they prepare to move out, Rex's posture suddenly changes. His ears flatten and a low growl builds in his throat. Everyone freezes, recognizing a warning signal. Somewhere ahead, hidden in the desert heat, cartel scouts are waiting. The dog's enhanced senses have detected what human eyes and technology missed. The sun hangs low on the horizon, painting the desert in shades of blood and fire. In less than an hour, it will be dark. At the airstrip, Emma listens to the sound of aviation fuel being pumped into tanks, feeling the tracking bracelet press against her skin. She thinks of Rex, of all the hours they spent training together, and allows herself a small smile. The cartel thinks they're dealing with a stubborn rancher and his helpless daughter. They're about to learn just how wrong they are. Twilight creeps across the desert as 3 separate rescue teams close in on Vicente's airstrip. The facility spans nearly half a mile, a relic from the 1970s when local ranchers used it for crop dusting. Now it's cracked, concrete serves a darker purpose, its remote location perfect for cartel operations. Rex leads Miguel and Jorge through a dry creek bed, moving with practiced stealth. The dog's training shows in every movement how he freezes, at subtle sounds, how he uses the wind to scan for threats. 20 yards ahead, 2 cartel lookouts scan the darkening landscape, unaware of the predator approaching from their blind spot. Through her zip-tied hands, Emma feels her tracking bracelet vibrate. 3 short pulses, the signal they'd practiced, indicating rescue teams in position. She begins methodically working at her restraints, using a technique her brother taught. The cartel men focus on the plane's preparation, dismissing her as a helpless hostage. Dante places near the aircraft, arguing in rapid Spanish on his phone. The plan's timing is falling apart. Too many vehicles at the Martinez ranch. Too many witnesses. Someone mentions military contractors. His superiors want the girl across the border now, before outside agencies get involved. Carter's team deploys along the northern ridge, their thermal imaging showing 18 cartel members scattered across the airstrip. The plane's engines are hot. They're planning to take off soon. She sends hand signals to her unit, professional contractors who've done this kind of work before. They understand the stakes. Once that plane leaves the ground, recovery becomes nearly impossible. Chad and his veterans set up sniper positions on the eastern approach. Through his scope, he watches the cartel's defensive pattern. They're professionals, but they're watching for vehicles, for normal threats. They don't expect what's coming. Rex suddenly goes rigid, picking up a new scent. Miguel sees it too. Movement in the gathering darkness. Reinforcements arrived, at least 4 vehicles judging by the dust clouds. The cartel's bringing in more. Muscle, sensing something's wrong. The rescue window is closing fast. Emma hears the approaching vehicles and knows time is running out. She's worked one hand partially free when Dante roughly pulls her to her feet. "Time to go, Princessa." They start moving toward the plane, but Emma deliberately stumbles, buying precious seconds. Her bracelet vibrates again. 2 pulses this time. Teams in final position. The first shot comes as a surprise, a cartel lookout dropping silently from his post. Chad chambers another round, his experienced hands steady. The opposition hasn't realized they're under attack yet. 2 more lookouts fall before the first shout of alarm rings out. Chaos erupts as Carter's team opens fire from the ridge. Coordinated bursts of gunfire pin down the main cartel force, creating confusion. The arriving reinforcements screech to a halt, caught in the open between multiple firing positions. Professional cartel soldiers suddenly find themselves in a military-style ambush. This is the moment Rex has been trained for. As gunfire erupts across the airstrip, the Belgian Malinois launches from cover like a guided missile. His military training takes over, not attacking randomly, but moving with tactical precision toward his primary target. The first cartel member never sees him coming. Emma feels Dante's grip tighten as he drags her toward the plane. She hears the distinctive sound of Rex's attack behind them, the same efficient takedowns she'd watched him practice hundreds of times. Dante spins, raising his weapon, but Emma's already moving. All those hours of training with Rex taught her more than just dog handling. Her elbow strikes Dante's throat as she drops her body weight, just as Rex taught her. Use gravity. Use surprise. Dante staggers and Emma rolls clear, her remaining, restraint finally snapping. The cartel leader brings his gun around, but freezes at a sound that chills cartel soldiers from Texas to Guatemala, the war cry of a military K-9 on an attack run. Rex hits Dante like a furry battering ram, a precise takedown learned in combat zones. No wild dog attack this. Every move is calculated, professional. Emma scrambles clear as Rex pins the cartel leader, teeth inches from his throat, waiting for her command. Across the airstrip, the battle shifts. Carter's team moves in with military precision, their superior training evident. The local veterans provide covering fire, their shooting disciplined and accurate. These aren't random ranch hands, they're combat-experienced soldiers defending their home territory. Miguel and Jorge lead a flanking movement, cutting off the reinforcements' retreat. Years of ranch work and hunting have made them intimately familiar with this land. They use every shadow, every dip in the terrain. The cartel soldiers, used to intimidating civilians, find themselves facing opponents who know exactly what they're doing. Emma keeps Rex on Dante as she retrieves the cartel leader's dropped weapon. The plane's pilot, seeing the battle turn, makes a break for the cockpit. A single shot from Chad's position convinces him to reconsider. One by one, the remaining cartel members realize they're caught in a closing trap. Carter's team secures the airstrip with professional efficiency. They zip-tie captured cartel members, secure weapons, and gather intelligence. Emma finally gives Rex the release command, watching as the dog instantly transitions from lethal weapon back to alert guardian, taking up a protective position at her side. Miguel reaches his daughter as the last shots fade into desert silence. The reunion is brief. Both of them know this isn't over. Carter's team has captured valuable intelligence, including phones and documents, but the cartel's reach is long. This victory will have consequences. Dante, secured and seated against a wheel strut, glares at Emma and Rex. "You have no idea what you've done," he spits in Spanish. "The cartel doesn't forget. We'll come back stronger with more men." Emma cuts him off, switching to perfect Spanish. "No, you don't understand. You thought you were targeting a simple ranch family. You didn't do your research." She scratches Rex behind the ears, feeling the powerful muscle still tensed for action. "Next time, check what kind of dog someone has before you threaten their family." The last light fades from the desert sky as red and blue lights appear on the horizon, local law enforcement finally arriving. Carter's team quickly withdraws, their role here best left undocumented. The veterans melt away too, leaving only ranch hands and family members for the official report. Jorge helps Emma treat a few minor cuts as they wait for the authorities. Rex maintains his guard position, scanning the darkness beyond the airstrip's lights. Both of them know this incident will mark a change in their quiet corner of Texas. The cartel has been humiliated, their air route compromised. They won't take that lightly, but something else has changed too. The local ranchers have found their backbone, realizing they're not helpless against cartel intimidation. Emma watches the gathered neighbors, men and women who came together to help her family. They're organizing patrols, sharing intelligence, forming networks. The cartel's greatest weapon was always fear, and tonight that weapon lost its edge. Miguel makes a few quiet phone calls, setting things in motion. Emma's brother taught him well. Sometimes the best defense is a strong offense. By morning, cartel operations across 3 counties will face unprecedented scrutiny from multiple agencies. The message is clear. Mess with one ranch family, you deal with all of us. As the police begin taking statements, Emma feels Rex lean against her leg, his mission completed, but his vigilance unwavering. She thinks about all the hours spent training together, preparing for a day she hoped would never come. The cartel chose her as a soft target, never realizing they were attacking someone who had learned from one of the military's deadliest assets. Their mistake wasn't taking her, It was not understanding what her pet was capable of. The next morning breaks over Mason County with an eerie calm. Emma stands on the ranch house porch, coffee mug warming her hands as she watches the sun paint the desert gold. Rex patrols the perimeter, his movements precise and alert. The events of last night haven't changed his routine. If anything, the canine's protective instincts have intensified. Inside, Miguel hosts an emergency meeting with neighboring ranchers. The dining room table disappears under maps and satellite photos as they plan new security measures. Last night's victory came at a cost. The cartel will retaliate, everyone knows it, but the dynamics have shifted. Fear has been replaced by determination. Sheriff Anderson arrives with fresh intelligence. The captured cartel members are singing to federal authorities, hoping to avoid terrorism charges. Dante's phones and laptops revealed an extensive network of corruption. Local officials, border agents, even a state judge. The investigation is spreading like wildfire. Emma's brother calls from his classified location, his relief evident. Even through the encrypted line, Carter's team sent me the after-action report, he says. Rex performed exactly as trained. But sis, you need to be careful now. The cartel doesn't take humiliation well. He's already making arrangements, calling in more favors to ensure his family's protection. By mid-morning, TV news vans appear at the ranch gate. The story's too big to ignore. A cartel kidnapping foiled by a military canine and determined locals. Emma watches from the barn as reporters set up their equipment, already spinning narratives about brave ranchers standing up to organized crime. Jorge approaches with concerned eyes. "They're making us targets," he mutters in Spanish, nodding toward the media circus. "The more they talk, the harder the cartel will hit back." Emma understands his worry. Cartels maintain power through fear and reputation. Last night, both were damaged. Chad and his veterans have set up an observation post on the ranch's highest point. Their spotting scopes scan the approaches, while drones monitor the backcountry. These men understand asymmetrical warfare. They fought it overseas, and now they're fighting it at home. The cartel's usual tactics won't work against combat veterans protecting their community. Around noon, Carter returns. Her tactical gear is replaced by civilian clothes, but her eyes constantly scan for threats. She brings satellite photos showing cartel movements along the border. They're regrouping, pulling in assets from other territories. "This goes beyond revenge now," she explains. "You've disrupted their entire regional operation." Emma listens as Carter outlines contingency plans. Her brother's connections have opened doors. Federal task forces, intelligence agencies, even foreign contacts. The cartel thought they were targeting an isolated ranch family. Instead, they've awakened a network of military and intelligence professionals with personal stakes in the fight. Rex suddenly tenses, his ears forward. Seconds later, they hear vehicles approaching. 3 black SUVs with government plates. The occupants are a mix of federal agents and intelligence officers, their interests piqued by what last night's raid revealed. The cartel didn't just lose men and material, they lost operational security. Diana serves coffee as the officials spread documents across the kitchen table. Emma recognizes some faces from her brother's photos. These aren't regular bureaucrats. They speak in clipped phrases about assets and operational parameters. The ranch is becoming a forward operating base in a shadow war. Miguel listens as they outline the broader situation. The cartel's air route through Vicente's strip was part of a larger network. Its compromise has created opportunities to target their entire regional infrastructure. But success depends on cooperation from local ranchers, people who know the land and can spot what doesn't belong. Emma takes Rex for his afternoon patrol, using the time to process everything. The canine moves with renewed purpose, understanding that his territory has been threatened. She remembers her brother's words when he first brought Rex home. "He's not just a guard dog, sis. He's a deterrent. Enemies think twice when they know what they're facing." The afternoon brings more visitors, ranchers from other counties seeking advice on security measures. Word has spread about how the Martinez family fought back. Emma demonstrates Rex's training protocols, while Chad's veterans outline basic tactical procedures. Knowledge spreads, communities organize. Carter pulls Emma aside as sunset approaches. "Your brother asked me to give you this." She hands over a small case containing specialized radio equipment. "You're part of our network now. If anything happens, if you spot anything unusual, you have direct lines to people who can help." That evening, the family sits down to dinner, together, a tradition maintained despite everything. Diana has prepared Emma's favorite dishes, her way of processing the near loss of her daughter. Jorge and the ranch hands join them, their presence a statement of solidarity. They're more than employees now. They're fellow warriors in an unexpected battle. Rex lies at Emma's feet, ever vigilant. To outsiders, he looks like a faithful pet resting after a long day. But Emma sees the subtle signs, how his ears track every sound, how his muscles remain ready to launch. The cartel mistook him for a simple ranch dog. Their wounded survivors now tell stories about the ghost that moved through the darkness, striking with military precision. Miguel raises his glass in a toast. "To family," he says, "and to those who stand with us." The words carry weight beyond their simplicity. Last night's events have forged new bonds between neighbors, between ranchers and veterans, between civilians and shadow warriors. The cartel's attempt to isolate and intimidate has instead created a community of resistance. After dinner, Emma walks the perimeter with Rex one last time. The desert night is alive with sounds, coyotes hunting, nightbirds calling, the wind through mesquite branches. But there are new sounds too. Radios crackling as Chad's team maintains overwatch, drones humming overhead, vehicles patrolling distant roads. She thinks about how much has changed in 24 hours. Yesterday, they were a family under siege, facing the cartel's pressure alone. Now they're the nucleus of something larger, a network of ranchers, veterans, and intelligence assets, united against a common enemy. The cartel wanted to make an example of them. Instead, they've become an example of how to fight back. Rex stops suddenly, testing the wind. Emma follows his gaze toward the distant border. Somewhere out there, cartel leaders are plotting retaliation, unaware that every move they make is now being watched. Not just by satellites and drones, but by determined locals who know every wash and gully, every game trail and hidden spring. She scratches Rex behind the ears, feeling the power in his compact frame. "Good boy," she whispers and means it. His military training helped save her life, but it's his loyalty, his absolute dedication to protecting his family, that made the difference. The cartel chose the wrong target when they threatened. A woman who had learned warfare from one of its finest practitioners. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. The shadow war is just beginning. But as Emma and Rex head back to the house, she feels something she hasn't experienced since the threats began: hope. The cartel's greatest weapon was isolation, making each family feel alone and vulnerable. That weapon is broken now, shattered by a community's courage and a K-9's devotion. Inside, Miguel studies reports from their new intelligence network while Diana cleans her shotgun. Jorge reviews security protocols with the night shift. Chad's team maintains their overwatch, and Rex settles into his familiar spot by Emma's chair, alert even in rest, ready to face whatever comes next. The desert night deepens around the Double M Ranch, but its darkness no longer holds terror. The cartel thought they were attacking a soft target. Instead, they've awakened a force they never expected. American ranchers and veterans, intelligence operators and loyal K-9s, all united in defense of their homes and families. The war has changed, and the enemy is about to learn just how badly they miscalculated. 3 days after the airstrip incident, The morning calm shatters as Rex's warning bark echoes across the ranch. Emma rushes to the security monitors Jorge installed, watching a convoy of unmarked vehicles approaching from the south. But these aren't cartel vehicles. They're diplomatic plates, Mexican government officials. Carter materializes beside Emma, her presence a reminder of the invisible network now protecting the ranch. Federal Police Commissioner Torres, she identifies the lead vehicle's passenger. He's claiming this is about bilateral cooperation, but his brother's on the cartel payroll. The meeting unfolds in the ranch's main house. Commissioner Torres, impeccable in his tailored suit, speaks perfect English as he expresses concerns about civilian militias operating along the border. Miguel listens silently, noting how the commissioner's eyes keep drifting to the maps and communication equipment, now standard features of their dining room. Rex positions himself between Emma and the Mexican delegation. His military training, evident in how he controls the space. One of Torres' men keeps touching his concealed weapon when the dog moves. He's wearing cartel tattoos under his expensive suit. Emma catalogues the details for Carter's intelligence report. "We understand your desire for security," Torres says smoothly, "but private citizens cannot take the law into their own hands. There are diplomatic channels for addressing these concerns." His smile doesn't reach his eyes as he slides a document across the table. A formal complaint about the airstrip incident. Miguel's response is measured but firm. "Commissioner, when diplomatic channels are corrupted by cartel money, citizens must protect themselves." He doesn't touch the document. "Your brother's banking records might interest our federal friends." The tension spikes. Torres' facade cracks slightly before he recovers. Outside, Chad's veterans maintain overwatch positions, their rifles trained on the Mexican vehicles. Emma's brother has made sure everyone knows the stakes. This isn't just about one ranch anymore. After the delegation leaves, Carter's team sweeps for surveillance devices. They find 3 high-end Russian models. "They're getting desperate," Carter observes. "Using official channels for reconnaissance means they're running out of options." That afternoon, Emma reviews drone footage with Jorge and Chad. Cartel operations along the border have changed dramatically since the airstrip raid. Their usual routes are abandoned, safe houses empty. They're adapting, but so is the ranch network. Veterans from 3 counties now coordinate surveillance, sharing intelligence with trusted federal contacts. Rex alerts again around sunset. 2 trucks approaching, but these are friendly. The Henderson family who sold their ranch under cartel pressure months ago have returned. More importantly, they've brought information. The cartel's regional commander, Eduardo El Coyote Vargas, is personally taking control of the situation. "He's never gotten his hands dirty before," Henderson explains, accepting coffee from Diana. "Always worked through intermediaries. But losing that airstrip hurt them bad. It was their main pipeline into 3 states. Emma's brother calls that evening with confirmation. Satellite imagery shows unusual movement around Vargas's compound in Mexico. "He's pulling in muscle from other territories," he reports, "but he's exposed himself. Every time he moves, we're watching." The next morning brings more allies. Native American trackers from the reservation, retired Border Patrol agents, even a few Mexican military veterans who hate the cartels more than they trust their own government. The ranch becomes a staging area for an unofficial coalition united by a common enemy. Rex works with other K9s now, retired military and police dogs integrated into the ranch's security network. Emma watches him lead training sessions, teaching other handlers the techniques that help save her life. The cartel's failed kidnapping attempt has evolved into something they never anticipated, a community learning to defend itself. Carter receives intelligence about cartel infiltrators in local law enforcement. Sheriff Anderson helps identify compromised Deputies building cases for federal prosecution. The shadow war extends into bureaucratic battlefields, bank records, property deeds, shipping manifests. Every corrupt official exposed weakens the cartel's infrastructure. A week after Torres's visit, the first retribution attempt comes. 3 sniper teams set up in the hills overlooking the ranch, but Rex's enhanced senses detect them before they can get into position. Chad's veterans respond with precise counterfire. The cartel loses 6 experienced shooters and learns another lesson about underestimating their opposition. Emma finds a package on the porch the next morning. Surveillance. Photos of her family in various public places. It's meant to intimidate, to show their vulnerability. Instead, she uses the photos to map cartel observation posts, turning their psychological warfare into actionable intelligence. The ranch's transformation accelerates. Military-grade security systems, thermal cameras, encrypted communications. Local teenagers volunteer as drone pilots, their video game skills proving surprisingly useful. Retired intelligence analysts set up a fusion center in the barn, coordinating information from multiple sources. Rex adapts to the evolving situation, his military training finding new applications. He works with tactical teams, leads K9 units on patrol, helps train ranch hands in security procedures. The cartel's attempt to terrorize one family has instead created a force multiplier they never imagined. Miguel receives word that El Coyote is getting pressure from his superiors. The disruption to their operations extends far beyond one airstrip. The entire regional network is compromised. Cartel affiliates in 3 states are feeling the effects as the Ranch Coalition's intelligence operation expands. Diana organizes the ranch wives, creating support networks for families affected by cartel violence. Their meetings cover everything from tactical communication to trauma counseling. The community's response grows more sophisticated, combining security operations with social support systems. Emma's brother arranges for specialized equipment, thermal scopes, signal interceptors, ground sensors. But more importantly, he connects the ranch network with similar resistance movements across the border. Mexican ranchers and businessmen, tired of paying protection money, seeing hope in the Martinez family's example. Carter's team identifies 3 corrupt federal agents working with El Coyote. The evidence goes to trusted officials, triggering investigations that freeze cartel accounts and expose money laundering operations. The shadow war expands into financial territory, striking at the organization's economic foundations. Rex becomes a symbol of resistance, his story spreading through ranching communities across the Southwest. Other families acquire trained K9s, learning to integrate them into their security plans. The cartel's psychological advantage, their aura of invincibility, erodes with each successful defense. 2 weeks after the airstrip raid, El Coyote makes his move. Multiple assault teams hit 3 ranches simultaneously, trying to overwhelm the coalition's defenses. But Rex leads a coordinated K9 response, working with veteran tactical teams to repel the attacks. The cartel loses 28 gunmen and gains nothing. The failed assault marks a turning point. The cartel's traditional tactics, intimidation, corruption, overwhelming force, prove ineffective against an organized, tactically proficient opposition. Their attempts to isolate and terrorize individual ranches now face a networked community defense system. Emma reviews after-action reports with Carter, identifying patterns in cartel operations. Each engagement provides new intelligence, revealing weaknesses in their organization. The shadow war has evolved beyond simple survival. The ranch coalition is actively degrading cartel capabilities. Rex maintains his vigilance, but his role has expanded. He's not just a security asset anymore, he's a teacher, a force multiplier who helps other communities develop their own defense capabilities. The cartel's attempt to break one family's resistance has instead created a model for fighting back. As another desert sunset paints the sky, Emma watches Rex work with a new group of canine handlers. The ranch has become something its enemies never expected. A training center, an intelligence hub, a symbol of successful resistance. The cartel thought they could intimidate a young woman and her dog. Instead, they've awakened a force that's reshaping the entire border dynamic. A month after the kidnapping attempt, Emma wakes to Rex's low, warning growl. The sound is different from his usual alerts, more urgent, focused. She checks the security feeds to find all systems normal, but trusts her dog's instincts. Something's wrong. Carter arrives minutes later, her face grim. El Coyote's gone dark, she reports. No electronic communications, no movements at known locations. He's switched to old-school methods. It's a tactical shift they hadn't anticipated. The cartel boss is learning, adapting. The morning brings news from their Mexican contacts. Cartel soldiers are moving in small groups, avoiding surveillance. They're using paper messages, face-to-face meetings. The high-tech intelligence network that's been so effective suddenly finds itself partially blind. Rex works with Chad's team, training for close-quarter encounters. The K-9's military experience becomes crucial as they prepare for what everyone knows is coming. El Coyote's new tactics mean the next attack will be different, more personal, more devastating. Emma's brother sends encrypted warnings. His sources indicate the cartel is recruiting special forces deserters, men with training to match the ranch's defenders. The simple brutality of previous encounters will be replaced by something more sophisticated. The first sign comes at dawn. Rex finds a surveillance device hidden in the barn. Not electronic, but old military tech using focused sound waves. The cartel is learning from each failure, incorporating their opponent's expertise into their own operations. Miguel meets with the coalition leadership in the ranch's new command center. Ranchers, veterans, intelligence operators, all adapting to El Coyote's tactical shift. They've disrupted his modern operations, but now face an enemy returning to guerrilla warfare roots. Diana discovers attempts to infiltrate their support network. Cartel sympathizers posing as affected families, trying to gather intelligence. The shadow war enters a new phase, where trust becomes as vital as tactical capability. Rex's advanced training proves invaluable as he helps identify potential infiltrators. His ability to detect stress markers and unusual behavior patterns provides an edge that technology can't match. The cartel's attempt to go low-tech runs into the ultimate analog detector, a military K-9's enhanced senses. Carter's team intercepts fragments of the cartel's new communication method. They're using a complex system of dead drops and human couriers, making each message harder to track. But this slower approach also makes their operations more vulnerable to physical surveillance. Emma works with local ranchers to establish a network of observation posts. Rex helps train other dogs to patrol specific sectors, creating overlapping zones of coverage. The coalition adapts to fight an invisible enemy, learning to read subtle signs in the landscape. The pressure builds as small probing attacks test their defenses. Single shooters taking long-range shots, quick hit-and-run raids. The cartel is measuring response times, studying patterns. Each engagement feels like moves in a deadly chess game. Jorge identifies a pattern in the attacks. They're mapping blind spots, probing for weaknesses. The coalition responds by regularly changing patrol routes, varying response procedures. Rex leads other canines in random sweeps, making their security unpredictable. Emma's brother sends specialized equipment, designed for counter-guerrilla operations. Sound detectors, movement sensors, advanced camouflage systems. The ranch becomes a testing ground for next-generation tactical gear, staying one step ahead of the cartel's evolution. The war changes character. Less about firepower, more about intelligence and counterintelligence. Rex's military experience becomes even more crucial as he helps train the coalition in counter-surveillance techniques. His enhanced senses detect cartel observers before they can gather useful intelligence. Local teenagers, already skilled drone operators, develop new techniques for spotting cartel activities. They create patterns of normal desert movement, wildlife, wind effects, legitimate traffic. Anything that doesn't fit these patterns gets flagged for investigation. Miguel receives intelligence about El Coyote's growing frustration. The cartel leader's superiors demand results, but each adapted tactic meets an effective counter-response. The ranch coalition's ability to evolve faster than their enemy creates strategic advantages. Carter discovers attempts to hack their communication systems. The cartel's return to basic tactics is partly deception. They're probing both high-tech and low-tech vulnerabilities. Rex's patrols now include checking for physical taps on their hardened fiber optic lines. The coalition expands training programs, teaching other communities to detect and counter cartel surveillance. Emma works with Rex to develop courses in counter-guerrilla tactics, sharing their hard-won knowledge. Each trained group becomes another barrier to cartel operations. Diana organizes a network of local businesses to watch for unusual supply purchases. Hardware stores, electronics shops, agricultural suppliers, all potential intelligence sources. The cartel's attempt to go dark runs into a community-wide observation network. Chad's veterans adapt military counterinsurgency tactics for ranch defense. They create overlapping layers of security, physical barriers, electronic surveillance, human intelligence, and canine units. Rex helps integrate these elements into a comprehensive defense system. The Shadow War enters a new phase as El Coyote realizes conventional tactics won't work. Reports indicate he's calling in specialists, former intelligence operators, military contractors gone rogue. The next round will match professionals against professionals. Emma finds evidence of psychological warfare attempts, rumors spread in local communities trying to create doubt and fear. But the coalition's transparency and community involvement turns this tactic back on the cartel, exposing their manipulation attempts. Rex's role evolves as the threat changes. His military training now focuses on detecting advanced infiltration attempts. He works with other canines to establish overlapping sectors of responsibility, creating a living sensor network that technology can't duplicate. The ranch becomes a symbol of successful resistance, drawing visitors from other border regions. They come to learn, to train, to understand how one family's stand against cartel intimidation grew into an effective regional defense network. Carter receives intelligence about cartel losses since the failed kidnapping. Beyond the immediate casualties, they've lost safe houses, transportation routes, and corrupt officials. More importantly, they've lost the aura of invincibility that made their intimidation effective. As another week passes, the coalition's adaptation to guerrilla warfare produces unexpected benefits. Their enhanced observation capabilities detect other criminal activities, leading to arrests and asset seizures. The cartel's tactical shift has actually made them more vulnerable. Emma reviews security footage with Jorge, noting how Rex's behavior changes when he detects cartel observers. The K-9's military training allows him to mark targets without alerting them, giving tactical teams the element of surprise. Each engagement further erodes the cartel's operational capabilities. Miguel receives word that El Coyote faces criticism from rival cartels. His inability to suppress the ranch coalition threatens their shared interests. The Shadow War's impact extends beyond local operations, disrupting criminal enterprises across multiple territories. Rex maintains his vigilance. As the conflict evolves, his military training finding new applications in the changing tactical environment. The cartel's attempt to adapt their methods has instead highlighted their greatest vulnerability. They're fighting an opponent who learns faster than they do. 6 weeks after the kidnapping attempt, a massive electrical storm rolls across Mason County, disrupting communications and surveillance systems. Rex's behavior changes dramatically, his military training responding to something beyond the weather. Emma recognizes the signs. The cartel is using the storm as cover. Carter's team detects multiple groups converging on the ranch under the cover of darkness and static. El Coyote has recruited ex-military specialists from Eastern Europe, men experienced in fighting through electromagnetic interference. The storm isn't just cover, it's part of their tactical plan. Emma and Rex lead the response, moving through the rain-soaked darkness with practiced precision. The K9's enhanced senses cut through the storm's chaos, detecting approaching threats that technology can't track. Lightning reveals glimpses of shadowy figures moving with professional discipline. These aren't ordinary cartel soldiers. Miguel coordinates the defense from the reinforced command center using hardened communication systems designed for extreme conditions. The coalition's preparations for electronic warfare prove crucial as regular channels go dark. Rex's training team becomes the primary sensor network, feeding information through runners. Diana manages the medical preparation, knowing this attack will be different. The mercenaries' professional training means precision strikes, targeted wounds. The ranch's infirmary transforms into a combat medical station ready for military-grade injuries. The first contact comes at the north fence line. Rex detects the infiltration team before they breach the perimeter, allowing Chad's snipers to respond despite the storm's interference with their electronic scopes. The mercenaries' night vision equipment proves useless against coordinated K9 units operating in their natural environment. Jorge's security teams engage multiple breaching attempts, facing opponents who match their tactical knowledge. The battle becomes a chess match of military doctrine, NATO procedures against cartel-funded professionals. Rex's presence proves decisive as his combat experience helps counter textbook special forces techniques. Emma's brother patches through a broken transmission. Satellite imagery shows more teams approaching from the south. The mercenaries are using classic pincer movement, trying to split the ranch's defenses. But Rex's training program has prepared for this, with K9 units positioned to respond to multiple threats. Carter identifies the mercenaries' commander through radio intercepts, a former Spetsnaz operator with extensive experience in asymmetric warfare. El Coyote has spent millions to hire the best, but they're fighting on unfamiliar territory against defenders who know every inch of the ground. The storm intensifies as the battle spreads across the ranch. Lightning illuminates brief tableaus of combat. Rex leading a counter-assault team, mercenaries falling back from unexpectedly fierce resistance, ranch defenders moving with professional precision through the chaos. The cartel's elite forces find themselves matched against American veterans fighting for their homes. Emma coordinates with other K9 handlers using training protocols developed over the past weeks. The dogs work in pairs, one engaging while the other tracks, maintaining constant pressure on the attackers. The mercenaries' advanced equipment proves less effective than basic animal instincts honed by military training. Miguel receives word that the storm has grounded federal response teams. The ranch coalition stands alone against El Coyote's best-funded attack yet. But isolation has been factored into their defense plans. Every rancher and veteran knows their role in the autonomous response network. Rex leads a tactical team through the flooded creek bed, using the water to mask their movement. His military experience in adverse conditions becomes a force multiplier as the mercenaries struggle to maintain formation in the deteriorating weather. The K9's ability to operate in any environment gives the defenders a crucial advantage. The battle shifts as the mercenaries attempt to use the storm's cover for a coordinated assault on the main house. But Rex's enhanced senses detect their approach through the rain and wind, allowing defenders to set up a devastating crossfire. The professional soldiers find their textbook tactics countered by a combination of local knowledge and military K9 capabilities. Carter's team intercepts communications indicating the mercenaries are taking unexpected casualties. Their commander hasn't faced organized resistance led by trained military dogs before. Each attempted maneuver meets prepared countermeasures backed by K9 units that can track through any conditions. Emma directs Rex through a series of flanking movements using the dog's ability to navigate in zero visibility. The mercenaries' night vision and thermal equipment, degraded by the storm, can't match a military K9's natural capabilities. Their technological advantage becomes a liability as they rely on failing systems. Jorge's security teams begin pushing the attackers back, using pre-planned response protocols that don't require electronic coordination. The ranch's defense network, built around the assumption of communications failure, proves more resilient than the mercenaries' sophisticated assault plan. The storm reaches its peak as the battle enters a crucial phase. Lightning reveals the mercenaries attempting to regroup, their professional discipline shaken by the unexpected effectiveness of the ranch's defenses. Rex leads a coordinated K9 assault that breaks their remaining cohesion. Diana coordinates with medical teams as the first casualties arrive. The mercenaries' professional training shows in their shot placement and tactical wounds, but the defenders' preparation matches their expertise. The ranch's medical response proves as effective as its tactical defense. Chad's veterans recognize the mercenaries' withdrawal signals, patterns learned in other conflicts. The professional soldiers are breaking contact, accepting mission failure. Rex's presence at key points ensures they can't disengage cleanly, maintaining pressure until they're forced into a full retreat. Emma's brother confirms through broken communications that additional cartel forces waiting in reserve are also pulling back. The mercenaries' failure has convinced El Coyote to abort the entire operation. His multi-million-dollar assault force has been defeated by ranch defenders and their K9 units. The storm begins to clear as first light approaches. The defenders assess damage and casualties, finding their preparations have minimized both. Rex leads teams clearing the ranch perimeter, ensuring no hidden threats remain. The mercenaries' withdrawal is complete and costly. They've left behind equipment and wounds that provide valuable intelligence. Carter debriefs captured mercenaries, learning the full scope of El Coyote's plan. The storm was supposed to blind the ranch's defenses, allowing professional soldiers to overwhelm the defenders through superior training and equipment. Instead, it revealed the limitations of technology against military K9s and prepared defenders. Miguel receives reports from coalition members across the region. The ranch's successful defense against professional mercenaries becomes an immediate legend, proving that cartel money can't overcome community resistance backed by proper training and resources. Rex's role in defeating Special Forces operators adds to his growing mythology. The mercenaries' commander, treated for wounds in the ranch infirmary, admits they underestimated their opposition. His force is expected to face amateur ranch defenders, not an organized resistance network led by military K9s. The cartel's attempt to overwhelm the ranch with professional soldiers has instead demonstrated the effectiveness of its defense model. Emma works with Rex to document the battle's lessons, developing new training protocols based on the encounter. The mercenaries' professional tactics revealed areas for improvement, but also confirmed the effectiveness of their K9-centered defense strategy. Each engagement makes the coalition stronger, more adaptable. As the sun rises fully, the storm's Aftermath reveals the scale of the night's conflict. The ranch shows signs of professional assault, precise damage, tactical breach points, evidence of coordinated movement. But it also shows the effectiveness of the defense, failed attack routes, abandoned equipment, signs of hasty retreat. Rex maintains his vigilance even as recovery operations begin, his military training recognizing that aftermath can be as dangerous as assault. The cartel's most ambitious attack has failed, but El Coyote's resources and desperation make him more dangerous than ever. The Shadow War enters a new phase, with professional mercenaries now proving ineffective against trained canine units and determined defenders. The week following the storm brings unprecedented calm. Too calm, Rex's behavior suggests. The K9's military instincts, honed by years of combat experience, sense the shift in the conflict's dynamics. This isn't retreat. It's preparation for something bigger. Emma finds Carter examining drone footage of cartel compounds across the border. The mercenaries' defeat has triggered power struggles within the organization. El Coyote's massive expenditure on failed professional soldiers has drawn attention from rival cartels. Internal politics are always bloodier than external conflicts. Miguel receives intelligence from Mexican contacts. El Coyote has gone to ground, but not in his usual hideouts. The cartel leader's behavior has become erratic, his orders increasingly desperate. The ranch's successful defense hasn't just wounded his operation. It's threatened his position within the hierarchy. Rex works with the coalition's expanded K9 units, training them to detect the subtle signs he noticed before the storm attack. The mercenaries' professional equipment left distinct traces: electromagnetic signatures, specialized explosive residues, tactical debris patterns. Each failed assault provides new learning opportunities. Diana coordinates with other ranch families, strengthening their support networks. The mercenary attack proved their defensive model works, inspiring more communities to adopt similar measures. What started as one family's resistance has evolved into a regional movement with trained K9 units at its core. Emma's brother patches through classified intelligence. El Coyote has liquidated his legitimate assets, converting everything to untraceable funds. It's the behavior of someone preparing for a last stand, not a strategic withdrawal. The next attack won't be about business, it'll be personal. Chad's veterans identify changes in cartel patrol patterns. They're pulling back from established routes, concentrating forces in staging areas. Rex's training teams adjust their surveillance coverage, preparing for multiple simultaneous threats. The calm feels like pressure building before an explosion. Jorge discovers attempts to infiltrate their supply lines. Cartel operatives trying to contaminate water sources, sabotage ammunition deliveries. Rex's enhanced senses become crucial in screening shipments, his military training detecting threats that might slip past human inspectors. Carter receives warning signals from her intelligence network. El Coyote has reached out to contacts in foreign paramilitary organizations, not for troops this time, for weapons. The kind of armaments that could devastate the entire county. The Shadow War threatens to escalate beyond anyone's control. Local law enforcement reports unusual activity in nearby towns. Strangers asking questions, watching traffic patterns, photographing infrastructure. The cartel is mapping civilian targets, looking for ways to hurt the ranch coalition through their extended community. Rex leads sweeps of critical locations, water treatment plants, power substations, communications hubs. His military experience helps identify vulnerable points that standard security might miss. The coalition expands its defense perimeter, protecting not just ranches, but vital community resources. Emma works with other handlers to develop rapid response protocols. If El Coyote targets civilian infrastructure, they'll need to secure multiple locations simultaneously. The K9 units train for urban operations, adapting their rural defense tactics for town environments. Miguel coordinates with federal agencies. Through back channels, the mercenaries' captured equipment provides evidence of international arms trafficking, drawing attention from higher authorities. The ranch coalition's local struggle increasingly overlaps with national security concerns. Diana organizes evacuation plans for vulnerable community members. Schools, hospitals, retirement homes, soft targets that can't be hardened against. Military-grade weapons. The coalition's success in direct confrontation has pushed the cartel toward more ruthless strategies. The captured mercenary commander provides crucial intelligence during debriefing. El Coyote's psychological state has deteriorated since the failed attack. His plans increasingly focus on maximum damage rather than strategic objectives. The professional soldier's assessment is chilling. They're facing someone with nothing left to lose. Carter's team intercepts fragments of cartel communications, suggesting multiple operations in planning stages. The messages are deliberately vague, but Rex's reaction to certain locations during security sweeps confirms their significance. The K9's instincts have proven more reliable than electronic intelligence. Chad's veterans recognize the pattern from overseas deployments, an enemy shifting from conventional tactics to terror strategies. They begin training local emergency services to respond to scenarios they hoped never to see outside combat zones. The shadow war threatens to engulf the entire region. Emma finds evidence of cartel propaganda targeting local youth. Social media campaigns glorifying cartel life, offering quick money and excitement. The psychological battlefield expands as El Coyote tries to turn the community against itself. Rex's presence at school demonstrations becomes a counter-symbol, showing children a different kind of strength. Jorge identifies increased activity along forgotten smuggling routes, not the usual drug shipments, but heavy transport under heavy guard. Rex's training teams track the movements, building a picture of weapons being staged for a massive operation. The cartel's next move will be unlike anything they've faced. The coalition expands its defense preparations beyond tactical considerations. Mental health counselors, trauma specialists, community organizers preparing for an attack on society itself. The ranch's K9-centered security model evolves to protect not just physical assets, but social cohesion. Miguel receives word that other cartels are watching events closely. El Coyote's obsession with crushing the ranch resistance has created opportunities for his rivals. The Shadow War's outcome could reshape power dynamics across the entire border region. Rex maintains heightened alert status despite the apparent calm. His military experience recognizes the signs of imminent large-scale operations, increased reconnaissance, probing actions, resource staging. The K9's behavior becomes a barometer for threat levels, warning of dangers before they materialize. Emma works with Carter to analyze potential attack scenarios. El Coyote's psychological deterioration makes him more dangerous, but also more predictable. His need for dramatic revenge narrows the range of likely targets. The coalition's defense planning focuses on high-visibility locations that would satisfy his increasing megalomania. Local businesses report pressure to cut ties with the ranch coalition. Anonymous threats, vandalism, cyber attacks on their systems. The cartel's inability to defeat the defenders directly leads to attempts to isolate them economically, but community solidarity proves stronger than intimidation. Diana coordinates with medical facilities across 3 counties, preparing for mass casualty scenarios. The mercenary commander's intelligence suggests El Coyote has acquired weapons designed for maximum civilian casualties. The ranch's defensive Success has pushed him toward increasingly inhumane strategies. Chad's veterans recognize a troubling shift in cartel movements. They're not staging for a direct assault this time. They're positioning for something bigger. Rex's reaction to certain wind directions suggests chemical agents might be involved. The Shadow War approaches a dangerous threshold. As another week passes, tension builds across the region. The Ranch Coalition's K-9 units maintain constant patrols, their military training focused on detecting the slightest changes in baseline conditions. El Coyote's next move won't be another frontal assault. It'll be an attempt to break not just the defenders, but the entire community's will to resist. 2 months after the failed kidnapping, Rex's behavior changes dramatically during a routine perimeter check. The K-9's military training responds to something only his enhanced senses can detect: a subtle shift in air pressure, an unfamiliar chemical trace. Emma immediately alerts the command center. Carter's team confirms Rex's warning through specialized equipment. Environmental sensors detect traces of chemical weapons, precursors in the prevailing winds. El Coyote has acquired Soviet-era artillery shells from Eastern European arms dealers. The Shadow War is about to escalate beyond anyone's worst fears. Miguel receives urgent intelligence from Mexican military contacts. El Coyote has completely abandoned his usual operations, focusing all resources on a single massive strike. Intercepted communications suggest he's planning to target civilian populations, hoping to break the community's resistance through sheer terror. Rex works with hazmat specialists, his combat experience adapting to new threats. The K-9's ability to detect chemical agents becomes crucial as the coalition prepares response plans. Emergency services conduct evacuation drills, knowing they might have minutes to react when the attack begins. Emma's brother patches through classified satellite imagery, showing unusual activity at abandoned military bases across the border. El Coyote has gathered his remaining forces, combining conventional weapons with chemical agents. His psychological deterioration makes the situation even more dangerous. Diana coordinates with regional hospitals, implementing mass casualty protocols. The captured mercenary commander provides crucial details about El Coyote's weapons capabilities. His assessment is grim. The cartel leader has acquired enough chemical artillery to contaminate 3 counties. Chad's veterans recognize the attack pattern from their overseas experience. El Coyote's forces are positioning for a combined arms operation. Conventional forces to pin down defenders while chemical weapons target civilian areas. Rex's training teams adapt their tactics for this new threat level. Jorge discovers attempts to sabotage community warning systems, cartel infiltrators targeting emergency broadcast equipment, trying to prevent evacuation alerts. The K-9 units begin guarding critical infrastructure, their military training proving adaptable to civilian defense roles. Carter receives intelligence about El Coyote's mental state from cartel defectors. The Ranch Coalition's successes have driven him to increasingly apocalyptic thinking. He's no longer fighting for profit or power. He wants to make the entire region uninhabitable if he can't control it. Local authorities coordinate with federal agencies as the threat becomes clear. Rex's ability to detect chemical agents leads to the creation of an early warning network. K-9 units positioned around population centers become the first line of defense against an invisible threat. Emma works with other handlers to develop rapid evacuation procedures. The dog's enhanced senses provide crucial minutes of warning before chemical detection equipment registers dangerous levels. Training focuses on quick response times, knowing that seconds could mean hundreds of lives. Miguel strengthens coalition defenses while maintaining mobile response capabilities. El Coyote's forces will likely attack multiple targets simultaneously, trying to overwhelm emergency services. Rex's military experience helps identify likely strike points based on wind patterns and population density. The pressure builds as cartel forces continue gathering across the border. Drone footage shows artillery pieces being positioned on high ground, their range covering major population centers. The coalition's tactical success has pushed El Coyote toward weapons of mass destruction. Rex leads training sessions for civilian first responders, helping them understand K9 warning signals. His military background proves invaluable in preparing for chemical warfare scenarios. Emergency teams learn to react instantly when the dogs give specific alerts. Carter's intelligence network detects increased activity in cartel staging areas. El Coyote has begun moving his artillery under cover of darkness, positioning for a massive barrage. The chemical weapons threat creates a deadly calculation. Evacuating too early could trigger the attack. Too late could be catastrophic. Diana works with school officials to implement emergency protocols. Children practice rapid response drills, learning to react to K9 warning signals. The community's preparation reflects a grim reality. They're facing an enemy willing to target the most vulnerable. Chad's veterans identify likely chemical strike zones based on terrain and wind patterns. Rex's reactions during site surveys confirm their analysis. The coalition prepares fallback positions and decontamination centers, knowing they'll face casualties despite their preparations. Emma coordinates with other ranches to create safe zones outside predicted contamination areas. Evacuation routes are planned and marked, with K9 units positioned to provide early warning. The shadow war has evolved from defending property to protecting entire communities. Jorge discovers evidence of cartel scouts marking target coordinates. Rex's training teams track and eliminate forward observers, degrading El Coyote's artillery accuracy. But the chemical weapons threat means even inaccurate fire could cause massive casualties. Local businesses donate resources for emergency preparations. The community's response shows its unity in the face of terror threats. Rex becomes a symbol of resistance, his presence reassuring civilians during evacuation drills. Miguel receives word that other cartels are withdrawing support from El Coyote. His focus on mass civilian casualties threatens their broader operations. But this isolation makes him more dangerous. He no longer feels constrained by business considerations. Carter's team intercepts orders to cartel artillery units. The attack will target schools and hospitals first, trying to break civilian morale. Rex's K9 teams begin round-the-clock patrols of vulnerable locations, knowing their warning could make the difference between life and death. Emma works with federal authorities to coordinate response plans. Her experience integrating K9 units into tactical operations proves valuable at a larger scale. The coalition's defensive model expands to protect civilian populations from weapons of mass destruction. The tension reaches breaking point as final preparations are made. Rex's behavior indicates imminent threat, his military training detecting signs of approaching conflict. The Shadow War is about to enter its most dangerous phase, a race between defenders and weapons designed to inflict maximum civilian casualties. Dawn breaks over Mason County with an unnatural stillness. Rex's posture changes at precisely 5:47 a.m. Ears forward, muscles tensed, nose working the wind. Emma recognizes the K9's combat stance from their years of training together. Within seconds, alarms blare across 3 counties. Carter's early warning network lights up as chemical sensors detect the first traces. El Coyote's forces have begun launching artillery from multiple positions across the border. The chemical shells carry a Soviet-era nerve agent designed to saturate entire communities. Miguel activates the coalition's emergency protocols from the command center. Sirens wail across towns and ranches as evacuation plans snap into action. Rex leads the first K9 response team toward the impact zones, his military experience with chemical weapons proving invaluable. The initial barrage targets schools and hospitals, just as predicted. But the coalition's preparations pay off. Buildings are already evacuated, with K9 units providing early warning of wind-borne agents. El Coyote's attempt to catch civilians, unaware, fails in its first minutes. Emma coordinates with other handlers as chemical shells rain down. The K9 teams work with perfect precision, their training showing as they guide evacuees through safe corridors. Rex's enhanced senses detect shifting wind patterns, allowing real-time adjustment of escape routes. Diana manages the first wave of evacuees reaching designated safe zones. The community's preparation is evident as families arrive with emergency hits following practiced procedures. Children respond to K9 signals just as they trained, turning potential panic into orderly movement. Chad's veterans engage cartel forward observers, disrupting their ability to adjust artillery fire. Rex's training teams identify infiltrators trying to report evacuation movements. The Shadow War enters its most critical phase, preventing El Coyote from tracking civilian targets. Jorge's security teams protect critical infrastructure as chemical rounds impact near power stations and water facilities. The K9 unit's ability to detect agents allows repair crews to work safely, maintaining essential services. Every practice drill and backup plan finds its purpose. Carter receives urgent intelligence. El Coyote has ordered his ground forces to advance behind the chemical barrage. Hundreds of cartel soldiers, supported by captured military vehicles, are moving toward the border. The artillery attack is cover for a massive invasion force. Local law enforcement coordinates with federal agencies as the crisis escalates. Rex's successful early warning becomes a model as other K9 units deploy across the region. The coalition's defensive network proves its worth, saving countless lives in the first hour of attack. Emma's brother patches through satellite imagery showing the scale of El Coyote's operation. The cartel leader has committed everything: men, weapons, resources. His artillery carries enough chemical agents to render the entire county uninhabitable. This is his final gambit for total victory or destruction. Miguel receives reports of cartel forces breaching the border in multiple locations. The chemical attack has created chaos among federal agencies, disrupting normal response patterns. Rex leads coalition teams through contaminated zones, their specialist training allowing them to maintain defensive positions. Diana coordinates medical responses as the first chemical exposure cases arrive at emergency stations. The coalition's preparation helps minimize casualties, but El Coyote's weapons prove devastatingly effective. Every trained K9 unit becomes crucial in detecting contaminated areas and guiding medical teams. Chad's veterans recognize the pattern from overseas conflicts. The chemical barrage will be followed by armored thrust designed to split defensive positions. Rex's military experience proves vital as the coalition adjusts its tactics, preparing for mechanized assault behind chemical cover. The morning sun reveals scenes of apocalyptic scale. Chemical clouds drift across the landscape while artillery continues to fall. But the coalition's defense holds. K9 units maintaining their positions, evacuation procedures working as planned, civilian casualties far below worst-case predictions. Carter's team intercepts El Coyote's communications, showing his growing rage. The lack of panic he expected, the failure to trap civilians with chemical weapons, the organized resistance continuing despite the barrage, everything defies his expectations. His orders become increasingly erratic. Emma works with emergency services to maintain evacuation corridors as the attack intensifies. Rex's ability to detect chemical agents allows precise mapping of safe routes. The K9's combat experience helps identify patterns in the artillery fire, predicting safe windows for movement. Jorge coordinates defense teams as cartel ground forces approach coalition positions. The chemical barrage has created dead zones in their security coverage, areas where normal equipment can't function. Rex leads specialized K9 units through contaminated sectors, maintaining critical surveillance. Local military units mobilize in response to the invasion, but face challenges operating in chemically contaminated zones. The coalition's K9 teams become vital partners, guiding conventional forces through safe corridors. Rex's training program proves its worth as military and civilian defenders coordinate seamlessly. Miguel receives intelligence about El Coyote's location. The cartel leader has set up a forward command post, wanting to witness his revenge personally. The coalition now faces a strategic decision: maintain defensive positions or strike at the enemy's command structure. Diana manages civilian support operations as thousands of evacuees crowd emergency shelters. The community's preparation shows, in every detail, stored supplies, practiced procedures, organized responses. Even children follow K9 unit signals with disciplined precision, remembering their drills. Chad's veterans identify weaknesses in the cartel's assault pattern. Their artillery fire is precise but predictable, their ground forces moving in textbook formations. Rex's combat experience helps exploit these patterns, allowing defenders to anticipate and counter enemy movements. Emma coordinates with federal agencies as the crisis draws national attention. The coalition's successful defense against weapons of mass destruction becomes an immediate case study. Rex's integration of military K9 capabilities into civilian defense proves revolutionary. The morning wears on as artillery continues falling. But what El Coyote intended as a devastating surprise has become a demonstration of community resilience. His chemical weapons failed to create expected panic. His ground forces face prepared defenders. His psychological warfare meets determined resistance. Rex maintains his vigilance as the battle enters a crucial phase. The K9's military training recognizes approaching decision points, the moment when attackers must either escalate dramatically or accept defeat. El Coyote's growing frustration suggests he'll choose escalation no matter the cost. The coalition faces its greatest test as reports confirm the cartel leader's deteriorating mental state. His communication increasingly focuses on complete destruction, threatening to empty his entire chemical arsenal. The shadow war approaches its climax, with thousands of lives hanging on the defender's ability to end the threat decisively. Midday finds Mason County under siege. Chemical clouds drift between buildings while artillery continues falling. But El Coyote's massive attack has failed to achieve its primary objective: breaking civilian morale. Rex leads a specialized K9 unit through the contaminated zones, tracking cartel infiltration teams with lethal efficiency. Carter's intelligence team intercepts disturbing orders from El Coyote's command post. The cartel leader has ordered his remaining chemical shells loaded with maximum payload, preparing to blanket the entire region. His psychological breakdown has reached critical levels. All pretense of tactical objective replaced by pure destructive rage. Emma coordinates with her brother's military contacts as satellite imagery reveals the cartel's artillery positions. A strike force could reach El Coyote's command post, but the approach requires crossing heavily contaminated terrain. Only Rex's enhanced senses and combat experience could guide a team through such hazardous conditions. Miguel gathers the coalition leadership to plan their response. The defensive strategy has worked, but they can't maintain it indefinitely. Each chemical barrage risks civilian casualties despite their preparations. A decisive strike at the enemy's command structure becomes their only option. Diana manages emergency operations as reports arrive of cartel forces massing for another push. The coalition's successful evacuation has frustrated El Coyote's attempts at mass casualties, but his forces now target infrastructure, water supplies, power stations, communication hubs. Chad's veterans recognize the situation's urgency. El Coyote's deteriorating mental state makes him more dangerous. He's abandoned any strategic objective in favor of maximum destruction. Rex's reaction to wind patterns suggests the chemical agents are becoming more concentrated, more lethal. Jorge mobilizes security teams as Carter outlines the strike plan. A small force will penetrate cartel lines under cover of the chemical clouds, using Rex's ability to detect safe routes. The K-9's military training in contaminated environments becomes crucial to the mission's success. Emma studies surveillance footage of El Coyote's command post, a fortified ranch house surrounded by defensive positions. The cartel leader's paranoia has created layers of security, but also isolation. His personal guards are now his only trusted forces, the rest deemed potentially disloyal. The strike team assembles as afternoon approaches. Chad leads the veterans, while Carter provides real-time intelligence support. Rex's combat experience shows in his focused intensity. The K-9 understands this mission's importance as clearly as his human counterparts. Miguel coordinates with federal authorities to prevent cartel reinforcement once the attack begins. The coalition's defensive network will maintain pressure across the border, keeping El Coyote's forces divided. Every K-9 unit takes position, ready to exploit any enemy weakness. Diana ensures emergency services remain prepared for worst-case scenarios. If the strike fails, El Coyote will likely empty his entire chemical arsenal. In retaliation, the coalition's evacuation protocols remain active, civilians ready to move at K-9 warning signals. The strike team moves out under chemical cover, Rex leading through contaminated zones. His enhanced senses detect minute changes in agent concentration, finding safe corridors through the deadly clouds. The K-9's military training proves invaluable as they penetrate cartel defensive lines. Carter's team monitors enemy communications as the mission progresses. El Coyote's paranoia works in their favor. He's reduced radio traffic, limiting his forces' coordination. The strike team exploits gaps in coverage, moving closer to their target with each passing minute. Emma maintains contact through specialized equipment as Rex guides the operators forward. The K-9's behavior changes subtly as they approach the command post, his combat instincts detecting increased threat levels. Years of training culminate in this mission, ending the chemical attacks at their source. Jorge's security teams engage cartel forces attempting to probe coalition lines. The defenders maintain pressure, preventing enemy units from responding to the developing threat to their leadership. Rex's training program shows its worth as other K-9 units coordinate the defense perfectly. Chad signals the team to hold position as they reach the outer security perimeter. Rex's subtle warnings indicate motion sensors and observation posts. The veteran operators prepare for close-quarter combat, knowing they'll have one chance to reach El Coyote before he can order maximum chemical release. The assault begins with precise coordination. Rex leads the first element through blind spots. In the cartel's security coverage, his military experience evident in every movement. The K-9's attack on key guards creates crucial seconds of surprise, allowing the strike team to breach multiple defensive layers. Carter reports chaos in enemy communications as alarms sound through the command post. El Coyote's paranoid security measures work against him. Automated lockdowns trap his own forces out of position. The strike team exploits the confusion, pushing deeper into the compound. Emma monitors Rex's progress through tactical feeds as the K-9 clears rooms with professional efficiency. His combat training shows target discrimination and controlled aggression. Each neutralized guard brings them closer to El Coyote's command center. Miguel coordinates supporting actions across the coalition network. Other K9 units intensify their pressure on cartel positions, preventing any organized response to the headquarters assault. The Shadow War's outcome balances on these crucial minutes. Diana receives word that El Coyote has ordered maximum chemical release, but communication breakdowns prevent the orders from reaching artillery units. The strike team's disruption of command structure already saved countless lives, even before reaching their primary target. Chad's veterans breach the final security corridor as Rex detects movement ahead. The K9's warning saves the team from hidden defenders, his precise attacks creating openings for the operators to advance. Years of military experience guide every action. Jorge reports increased enemy confusion as command authority breaks down. Cartel units begin acting independently, some withdrawing from combat, others pressing attacks without coordination. The Coalition's defensive network exploits each breakdown, pushing enemy forces back. The strike team reaches El Coyote's personal quarters to find additional security measures. Rex's enhanced senses detect explosive traps and hidden weapons, allowing safe approach. The cartel leader's paranoia has created a fortress that becomes a trap for its defender. Carter intercepts El Coyote's final communications. Desperate. Orders for complete chemical release, mixed with incoherent ranting about betrayal. The cartel leader's psychological breakdown reaches its peak as his security dissolves. Remote cameras show him preparing for a last stand. Emma watches through tactical feeds as Rex leads the final breach. The K9's military training culminates in perfect execution, neutralizing last-ditch defenders, creating attack corridors, protecting vital team members. Every lesson from years of combat experience applies to this crucial moment. The confrontation ends with anticlimactic speed. El Coyote, discovered in his command center, chooses a final act of defiance. But Rex's enhanced senses detect the suicide vest in time, his precise attack preventing detonation. The Shadow War's architect falls to the military precision he never expected to face. Miguel receives confirmation of mission success as coalition forces begin securing abandoned cartel positions. The chemical artillery, never fully unleashed, thanks to disrupted command structure, falls under defender control. Rex's strike team has ended the threat at its source. Diana coordinates with emergency services as the chemical clouds begin dissipating. The coalition's casualties remain remarkably low thanks to K9 early warning and evacuation procedures. El Coyote's attempt at mass destruction has failed against prepared defenders and military working dogs. The afternoon sun reveals the scale of what almost happened. Chemical weapons that could have devastated 3 counties, now secured and awaiting disposal. Rex maintains his vigilance during compound clearance, his combat experience recognizing that aftermath can hide final dangers. Emma works with Carter's team to document the operation's success. The coalition's defense model, centered on military K9 capabilities, proves revolutionary in civilian protection. Rex's integration of combat experience into community defense becomes a template for future security planning. The week following, El Coyote's defeat brings unprecedented change to Mason County. Dawn finds Rex patrolling the ranch perimeter, his movements still precise, but somehow lighter. The K9's military bearing remains, but the constant tension of imminent threat has eased. Emma watches him work, remembering how a simple kidnapping attempt transformed their quiet ranch into the front line of a shadow war. Carter oversees the final securing of captured chemical weapons. International disposal teams arrive daily, their specialized equipment filling the ranch's expanded parking areas. The coalition's success in preventing mass casualties draws high-level attention. Military observers studying their K9-centered defense model for potential wider application. Miguel coordinates with federal authorities as the full scope of their victory emerges. El Coyote's death creates a power vacuum, but not the chaos many feared. Other cartels, watching the coalition's effective defense, begin quietly withdrawing from the region. The Shadow War's outcome changes the border's criminal dynamics. Diana works with community leaders to plan the region's recovery. The chemical attacks left some areas temporarily uninhabitable, but the coalition's early warning system prevented any civilian deaths. Rex's training program became the foundation for a permanent civil defense network, with K9 units protecting critical infrastructure. Chad's veterans helped document tactical lessons from the conflict. The integration of military working dogs into civilian defense proves revolutionary, combining enhanced detection capabilities with community knowledge. Interest grows from other border regions facing similar threats, seeking to replicate the coalition's success. Jorge expands security training as more ranches adopt the K9-centered model. Rex's example shows how military-grade capabilities can adapt to civilian defense roles. The coalition's network grows stronger as each community adds trained dogs to their protection plans. Emma's brother arranges specialized support for affected areas. Decontamination teams, environmental experts, psychological counselors, all helping the region recover. The Shadow War's end brings new challenges, but the community faces them. With proven strength, Carter receives intelligence about broader cartel reactions to El Coyote's defeat. His obsession with destroying the coalition cost them millions in lost revenue and compromised operations. Other criminal organizations begin avoiding the region, seeking easier targets without organized resistance. Local businesses reopen as chemical contamination clears. The community's resilience shows in how quickly normal life resumes. Children return to schools now protected by K9 units, their training in emergency response becoming part of regular safety drills. Rex works with new handler teams, passing on his combat experience through carefully structured programs. His military background proves invaluable in preparing civilian dogs for defense roles. The coalition's K9 training center becomes a model for other communities facing organized crime. Miguel meets with representatives from neighboring counties interested in establishing similar programs. The ranch's transformation from target to training center reflects broader changes in border security thinking. Military working dogs, once specialized combat assets, find crucial roles in civilian protection. Diana coordinates support networks that emerged during the crisis. Ranch wives who managed evacuations now lead community preparedness groups. The Shadow War's lessons create stronger social bonds, turning individual survival into collective resilience. Chad integrates veteran expertise into permanent defense plans. The combination of military experience and local knowledge proves potent against organized crime. Rex's success inspires other retired working dogs to join civilian protection roles. Emma documents the coalition's tactical innovations for future reference. Their methods of combining K9 capabilities with community defense draw international attention. Requests for training arrive from regions facing similar criminal threats, seeking to replicate their effective resistance. Jorge helps establish permanent K9 patrol routes covering critical infrastructure. The dog's enhanced detection capabilities provide early warning of various threats. Rex's military training adapts to long-term civilian protection, creating sustainable security procedures. The ranch expands its facilities to accommodate growing training programs. New kennels, obstacle courses, and simulation areas fill spaces once used for cattle. The transformation reflects the community's evolution from victims to defenders. Carter's team monitors long-term changes in criminal operations along the border. The coalition's success creates a permanent shift in cartel behavior. Regions with trained canine units see significant decreases in organized crime activity. Local law enforcement incorporates lessons from the shadow war into standard procedures. Regular coordination with canine units becomes normal protocol. The community's enhanced security capabilities deter criminal operations before they begin. Rex maintains his daily routines while helping train new dogs. His military precision sets standards for the program. Each successful trainee extends the coalition's protective network, making the region increasingly resistant to criminal influence. Miguel receives requests from other ranching communities for guidance in establishing similar programs. The coalition's model proves adaptable to various situations. Their success story spreads, inspiring other regions to resist criminal intimidation. Diana helps document the psychological aspects of their successful defense. Community solidarity proved as important as tactical capability. The combination of K9 units and civilian cooperation creates defense networks that criminals struggle to penetrate. Emergency services incorporate K9 capabilities into standard responses. The dog's enhanced senses prove valuable in various crisis situations. Rex's example shows how military working dogs can serve broader community needs. Emma works with federal agencies to establish certification standards for civilian K9 defense units. Their experience helps create practical guidelines for other communities. The Shadow War's lessons transform into structured programs for future protection. The ranch's transformation completes as training facilities reach full operation. What began as one family's stand against cartel intimidation becomes a model for community defense. Rex's military background helps create a legacy of civilian protection that will last generations. As summer approaches, Mason County settles into a new normal. The Shadow War's scars remain visible in some places, but so does the strength it revealed. Chemical contamination zones shrink as cleanup progresses, while community bonds grow stronger through crises. Rex continues his patrols, now accompanied by trainees learning his techniques. The K9's military bearing carries a hint of pride in each successful student. His transformation from combat asset to community protector mirrors the region's evolution from vulnerability to resilience. Emma watches the ranch's expanded operations from her favorite hillside spot, the quiet pastures where she once trained. Alone with Rex now hosts dozens of handlers learning military working dog techniques. Their shadow war created something unexpected, a future where communities can defend themselves against any threat. The evening sun casts long shadows across the training grounds as another class completes their certification. Rex leads the final exercise, his movements still precise after countless repetitions. The ranch's legacy grows with each trained team, spreading the lessons learned in their desperate stand against cartel intimidation. What started as a failed kidnapping attempt ends as a revolution in civilian defense. The cartel's greatest mistake wasn't targeting a rancher's daughter. It was failing to understand what a military working dog could teach a community about protecting itself. Rex's example lives on through each trained K9 unit, ensuring no criminal organization will ever again underestimate the power of prepared defenders. The stars emerge over Mason County, finding Rex and Emma completing their evening patrol. The K9's alert posture remains unchanged, but his eyes carry a quiet satisfaction. They've built something lasting from their trial by fire, a model of resistance that will inspire others long after their shadow war fades into legend. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload. From us!